Hi, I'm Beth, and I'm going to be reading you the interview and some other stories from the June issue of Vanity Fair magazine. It's a sports-related issue this month, and the first interview story is called King of the Court. It says, as the brightest star on the men's tennis scene, Carlos Alcaraz draws attention whether he likes it or not. Jose Criales Unzueta speaks to the Spaniard about his rise to number one and the rivalry that promises the future of his sport. I'm used to this, Carlos Alcaraz says with a beguiling grin. I've been on the floor on clay before, so this isn't new. We're watching Alcaraz roll around on brick orange clay, but we're not watching him play tennis. There's some of it on his face, around his thick eyebrows and sprinkled above his lips. It's lightly dusted over his freshly trimmed beard, and his hair, longer than usual, a little disheveled. It's all over his clothing, too, a Louis Vuitton tank top that he'll occasionally let slide up his taut abdomen, some Nike gym shorts, 6-inch inseam, in case you were wondering, that offers a glimpse at his tan line, and his personal Rolex watch. Alcaraz, like many athletes of his stature, has lucrative apparel contracts, in his case with those brands. He's not quite a style icon, though he has his fascinations, like wearing zany, highlighter-colored looks on the court and his 300-plus strong sneaker collection, but he wears clothes well. It's the day before his first match at the Miami Open, and the Spaniard, who turned 23 earlier this month, has given Vanity Fair a fraction of his morning for a photo shoot and interview. Prior to his arrival alongside his formidable manager, Alcaraz's fellow Murcian Albert Molina, there's some anxiety in the air. We're working on a tight schedule, but it all clears once he walks in. Alcaraz is down for it all. I'd heard and seen clips online of Alcaraz being a gent, sweeping clay courts himself after practice rounds, greeting staffers and fellow players with the same warmth. And yet I was not prepared for his disarming niceness. If anything, he was differential, in a manner surprising for a person so famous and an athlete known for his vigor and on-court boldness. When he hears his fans cheer, Alcaraz points to his ear to encourage them to scream louder. He vigorously huffs and puffs and assuredly kicks his racket in between serves. His cockiness on the court is well earned. On the day we meet, he sits atop the ATP Tour rankings and collects celebrity spectators with the same ease he does trophies. Pop superstar Dua Lipa, soccer giant David Beckham, golf champion Rory McIlroy. The list goes on. Together with Jannik Sinner, Alcaraz is one half of Sinkerez, the fan-coined nickname for his rivalry with the current world number 2, which has been widely described as a rebirth for tennis following the dominance of the Big Three era, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. In person, Alcaraz is more gentle than he lets his on-court persona reveal, but he's tennis's greatest contemporary showman, and he knows it. In February, Alcaraz became the youngest man to complete a career Grand Slam. Djokovic, his opponent at the decisive match in Melbourne, lauded the achievement. What you've been doing, I think the best word to describe it, is historic, the Serbian said in his on-court interview. Legendary. When Alcaraz arrived at his first match in Miami, he carried a new Nike duffel bag that read, youngest ever to win the 4 of them. As it often happens with almost anything Alcaraz does, the bag lit a match. As journalist Jose Morgado pointed out on X, the statement seemed to forego a key word, man. In the Open era, Steffi Graf was 19 when she achieved the feat in 1988, and Serena Williams was 21 when she did it in 2003. But the flip side of Alcaraz's bag read, El más joven de la historia en ganar los 4 grandes. In Spanish, the line is gendered, as any bilingual Alcaraz zealot may point out. His detractors will say that, in Spanish, the masculine form is the general one. Was the omission classic Alcaraz audacity or a mere translation issue? Skeptics question whether what they see as immaturity is affecting his play. During a Miami match against American Sebastian Corda, Alcaraz approached his box. I can't anymore, dude. I want to go home, dude," Alcaraz told his team in Spanish. Last month, as the Monte Carlo Masters kicked off, Alcaraz said he regretted these comments. The Spaniard lost to Sinner in the final in Monte Carlo, falling to number 2. Did Alcaraz intentionally flunk out of Miami? Is he bored from Masters 1000's events, as French tennis coach and commentator Patrick Mouratoglou suggested? Had he come to Miami to party, as some online said mockingly? Well, I think that nowadays we have to be way more careful with what we say and what we do, but at the end of the day, we're just human, you know, Alcaraz tells me. We spoke in Spanish, both our first language. What he is acutely aware of is that people will react. It's stressful because you have to think about what you do and when you do it and where you are all the time, Alcaraz says. But as a person, we have good days and bad days. We wake up sometimes not wanting to do anything, but we still have to show up, and sometimes we don't react in the way we should. Yet Alcaraz is not a victim of his stature. What he is, really, is young. The youngest man ever to do it, but also just a guy in his early 20s. I don't want to say vertigo, he answers when I ask him about having already accomplished so much. I'm aware that I have so much ahead of me, and I try not to think that I have 12 or 15 years left of my career because I get overwhelmed, Alcaraz says, laughing. What he doesn't want is to end up leading a monotonous life that makes him a slave to tennis. Alcaraz began his professional tennis career at 14 and broke into the top 100 rankings 3 years later. In 2022, he won the U.S. Open and became the first male Zoomer to win a major singles title, in addition to becoming the youngest man to be ranked number 1 in the world. His name is mentioned alongside a plethora of records that oftentimes start with the youngest ever to. I know I'm living a dream life, a life I dreamed of, Alcaraz says, but I sometimes wish I could have more moments for myself, to do things a 22-year-old guy would do. From the outside, it looks like Alcaraz does make time to do those things. After his losing match to Corda, a tennis head friend jokingly texted me that we'd likely see photos of Alcaraz at E11 Even, the famed 24-hour Miami nightclub. Alcaraz has become known for seemingly living his life off the court with as much intensity as he plays on it. He slips past questions about his private life. He is, however, happy to talk about his downtime. He shares much of his life online with his more than 8.5 million followers. From Miami alone, clips jumping off a yacht, a video of golf with his friends, snapshots watching an Inter-Miami CF soccer match and an NBA game, a selfie with DJ Martin Garrix. Over time, you grow aware of what you need, Alcaraz says. There's been times in which I didn't stop to take a break, he says, and that led to me not playing well or becoming injured or... He pauses. Let's just leave it at that it didn't end well. In the months after we spoke, Alcaraz injured his wrist. He's since withdrawn from tournaments following the Monte Carlo Masters and decided not to defend his championship at Roland Garros. He's been vocal about the intensity of the tennis calendar and tells me he's working to change it. I think it's just as important or more than taking care of your body, he says about his mental health. There's people who are fairly so, obsessed with body aesthetics, but to me, it's just as important to take care of your head. There was a time in which it seemed, as Federer and Nadal appeared close to retirement, that men's tennis would never be as exciting again. Those reservations have been blown up by the bombastic presence of Alcaraz combined with Sinner's stoicism, a synergy seen in full force at Roland Garros last year. It was the first time they had met at a major final. Sinner was ranked first and Alcaraz second, and the defending champion. Alcaraz lost the first 2 sets but recovered in the third, and he and Sinner delivered what has been widely discussed as some of the most riveting tennis play in history in the last 2, which the Spaniard also won. At 5 hours and 29 minutes, it is the longest French Open final of all time. It is on record one of the greatest matches ever, Lee tells me. He recalls sitting courtside right where players leave their towels, so after every point, Alcaraz would come over and Spike Lee would, in his words, pump him up. Look, so I'm a sports fan and I'm a New Yorker, so I'm going to be loud and cheer for my guy, Lee laughs. And as it got tighter, I got louder. After the match, Lee gave Alcaraz his Yankees hat. Alcaraz likes to keep the tension with Sinner within the match. We're showing the world that we can be on court and give our best and try to do the most possible damage to the other, while playing, trying to beat each other, and then off court, just be two guys who get along really well, he says. We help each other give our best. There is, as Alcaraz says, no bad blood. We are fighting for the same goal, but there's no need to hate each other because we want the same thing. That said, when you are competing at this level, having a close friendship is complicated, he says. It can be done, he clarifies. I'm all for it. Sincarez has been great for tennis and for tennis fandom, but Alcaraz wants to manage expectation. Rivalries are long processes, he says. It's not comparable to the historic rivalries that have happened in tennis because we both have so many years ahead. Hopefully, we will continue playing against each other many times at many finals, and that we will split the greatest tournaments. Alcaraz is one of tennis's most decorated players today, but he is also becoming a pop culture obsession due to both his magnetism on the court and also to the fact that he is, objectively, very attractive. Buzzcarez is elite, texts another friend as we discuss Alcaraz's hairstyle in Miami, which is longer than usual after he's grown out a mullet-style fade he debuted at Indian Wells. There's also been a shaved undercut, a bleached buzz, and myriad other hairstyles that have Beckham style made headlines. With respect to both Riley Opelka and Alcaraz's tennis skills, though, the main thing fans will remember about this match was the surprise unveiling of Alcaraz's shaved dome, wrote GQ of the buzz cut in question. Alcaraz is aware of the public compulsion to analyze his looks. He doesn't purposely feed it, but he doesn't try to stop it either. Listen, I try for it not to be a disaster, but if there's something I want to do, I do it, he says. If I were to listen to everyone's opinion, I'd go crazy, right? He smiles again. Alcaraz's smile is wide and unrestrained, baring his teeth and his full lips, features he's grown into since breaking into tennis as a teenager. When I asked him about the culture's preoccupation with his clothes and his training, he simply laughs, not denying nor underscoring his enjoyment of it. There have been many other sex symbols in sports. Muhammad Ali, Beckham, Tom Brady, to name a few. Is Alcaraz on the same path? None of those are children of the internet era. None of them have the same preternatural sense of how fast an image can travel that comes with being a digital native. None of them are Carlitos, who goes viral online with the same speed and ease he hits a tennis ball. He has earned a perennial spot on social media feeds of anyone who is remotely interested in tennis or men. From the Australian Open alone, more than 1.2 million views on TikTok for defending his opponent, Alex de Minaur, from a time violation warning, another 3 million on Instagram for removing his tank top after a match and nodding at the camera after erupting applause, 3 million on Instagram for a supercut of him after his victory in Melbourne, and 9.2 million across both platforms for his vibing with his headphones on after a match. Then there's the hundreds of thousands of views Alcaraz procures from clips and supercuts from some of his most memorable points, remarkable foot speed, and impressive strength. He has been described as a human highlight reel by the tennis podcaster Matt Roberts, an assessment backed by The Guardian, The Telegraph, and The New York Times. What makes Carlos so compelling is the emotion he brings to the game. Joy, spontaneity, real artistry, Pharrell Williams, the creator-director of Louis Vuitton Men's, tells me via email. Seeing him live, you feel his presence immediately. He's not just playing, he's expressing something. If many of his counterparts tend to come across as self-serious and reserved, Alcaraz is explosive. Does he purposely put on a show, or is he an innate performer? He suggests that his showmanship is integral to his game. It's how I play, it's how I like to play, and how I want to play, he says. When people are entertained and I notice that they're enjoying it, I have a good time too. The viral moments are good for his image, he says, and for the sport in general. But there's also a downside. Now anyone can easily leave a comment. You can harm an athlete with just one comment, he says, admitting that negative comments have at times affected his game. Despite the Nike duffel, Alcaraz says he doesn't obsess over breaking records. There are records I want and that I'm chasing, but for when I can look back at my career when I reach the end of and see what I've done and where I am in comparison to others, he says. But I have to say that it is nice to see your name in some places. Djokovic himself has said Alcaraz combines the best of all three worlds, his own, Federer's, and Nadal's. But Alcaraz argued that he's grown past simple parallels. We reached a point in which comparisons are over, he says. He can appreciate a comment like Djokovic's. It's nice to hear, he pauses, then smiles like a young boy who's been praised by one of his idols. It's really cool. He composes himself. But I'm always going for my own style. It's what I've created and I've trained to perfect it. I haven't copied anyone, he said. People now know that I am Carlos Alcaraz. A second interview in this month's June Vanity Fair special sports issue is titled Kissing the Ring, and it says, turns out the most powerful man in Hollywood, at least for a moment, is NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Lachlan Cartwright chops it up with the mogul, entertaining bids from every studio head in town as they duke it out for the most valuable thing on TV. One evening in March, a healthy slice of the ruling class of media, politics, entertainment, and sports gathered in New York City to celebrate Rupert Murdoch's 95th birthday. Among the A-listers who descended upon the grill, his son Lachlan Murdoch, his ex-wife Wendy Deng Murdoch, Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, Hugh Jackman, Michael Bloomberg, Tony Blair, Barry Diller, and Andrew Lloyd Webber. Also, Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, New England Patriots proprietor Robert Kraft, and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. That football tycoons occupied a chunk of the bold-faced names was not a coincidence. The sport, and Goodell in particular, has become a power center. And like any power center, this one comes with battles, petty rivalries, and lots of money. Goodell has become the envy of all the other sporting leagues for the way he's been able to parcel out air and streaming rights. Amazon has Thursday Night Football. CBS and Fox have Sunday afternoons. NBC has Sunday nights. Monday night is the domain of ESPN and ABC. YouTube has the NFL Sunday Ticket, and Netflix has Christmas Day. And 86 of the top 100 TV broadcasts in 2025 were NFL games. But in 2024, the National Basketball Association inked a monster $76 billion deal with Amazon, NBC Universal, and Disney. At first, it had Goodell and the NFL fuming. Then they began salivating at the prospect that they could improve on their existing $110 billion contract. And as live sports became the ultimate subscription driver, broadcast partners and streamers are fighting over every bit they can get, putting Goodell in an enviable position as the ultimate media kingpin. The media landscape is changing quickly, and it's not because we're changing it, it's because that's where the consumers are going, Goodell tells me when we meet at his palatial NFL office the day before Murdoch's party. People think we're leading it. We're actually going where the consumers are. And I think that's a fundamental thing that you have to spend a lot of time learning and trying to understand. It is perhaps Murdoch, if anyone, whom Goodell vaunts as the model titan, as Goodell pushes for a deal that will cement his own legacy. Murdoch is a true visionary, Goodell says, on the way he builds everything. But what always struck me about him is he looked at things longer term. Over the past few months, the Murdoch empire has been a thorn in Goodell's side, as the Department of Justice has announced an investigation into how expensive and difficult it has become for NFL fans to watch games. The Wall Street Journal, Fox, and the New York Post have steadily aired accusations of anti-competitive, anti-consumer tactics. The accusations have irked the NFL and Goodell. Well, I don't agree with that because 88% of our games, roughly, are on broadcast television, Goodell tells me, pushing back. The other 12% are on platforms that are incredibly widely distributed and people are already there. Netflix is not a small distribution. In fact, you can make an argument it's bigger than some of the networks. Goodell has been politically savvy from the cradle. His father, Charles, was a U.S. Senator, appointed by New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller to Robert F. Kennedy's seat after his assassination. Charles, the descendant of a prominent New York abolitionist, was among the loudest Republican voices against the Vietnam War. Roger, one of 5 children, joined the NFL in 1982, working under Commissioner Pete Rozelle. After a brief stint with the New York Jets, he returned to the league office, becoming commissioner in 2006. As a businessman, he's direct, he's aggressive, says Versant CEO Mark Lazarus, who negotiated deals with Goodell when Lazarus was running NBC Sports. He's well prepared for any discussions. There aren't many, if any, things in discussions that we've had that he didn't have I may not have liked his answers, but that he didn't have an answer or a counterpoint to. Jones recalled being asked by a fellow owner whether Goodell, whom he had known in NFL marketing negotiations, was tough enough to be commissioner. I said, "Boys, don't worry about it. He bit as a puppy. He bit hard as a puppy. He will bite back," Jones tells me in his trademark Texarkana accent. Unlike other sports, the NFL has become entertainment crack. And as Jones puts it to me, the NFL is a soap opera 365 days of the year. Goodell has 32 constituents, the owners of the teams, who have come to trust and respect him as he has increased their wealth through rivers of media deal gold. Part of Goodell and his team's strategy has been to examine the value they are creating for their media partners. He's a great negotiator and is sitting on top of one of the last must-see real-time day-and-date broadcasts, so he has a lot of great cards to play, former CAA chairman and co-founder Michael Ovitz, a friend of Goodell's, tells me. Kraft describes Goodell as a hard negotiator who is almost relentless in a positive way. Sometimes we have to calm him down, he's so good at it. With a limited supply of games but seemingly unlimited demand from the streamers, the NFL has become a cash-minting media company with an incredibly valued product. My recollection of the negotiations is they were much more about what you were going to get for the money you were going to pay, and much less about the money you were going to pay. And also much less about what games you were going to get. Former president of ESPN John Skipper says, meaning, as he clarifies, at least in my experience, the NFL did not negotiate much on price. Thanks to David Ellison's Paramount purchase, Goodell has used a change of control provision in the contract to kickstart talks to renegotiate their deal and then set the market for the other partners. We look at the numbers, we look at the data, we look at the value behind it all, Hans Schroeder, the chief operating officer of NFL Media, tells me. And yes, we think our rights are driving even more value today. As Roger said, our rights are undervalued. The drumbeat started as soon as the Super Bowl was over. In late March, the Wall Street Journal reported that Netflix, hungry for more NFL, is looking at a Thanksgiving Eve game plus an international match to add to its Christmas package. CNBC reported that the NFL and Paramount Skydance were discussing a deal that could cost CBS an extra $1 billion or more. It's up for debate whether any of the key media partners are making money from the NFL rights they bought, and none wanted to discuss it on the record. Rather, they believe in the intangible benefits of being in partnership with the NFL. Having the rights buys you leverage with distributors, advertisers, and subscribers. And it's a promotional vehicle for CBS or Amazon or NBC to plug new series as they try to manifest new hits. Part of it is we push our partners to do the best they can do with it, says Kraft, who chairs the league's media committee. What we see happening now is they are bundling our content with other content they have that's not as strong and have people bidding on that basis. And we want to get our fair value, and I think that's really what is driving us. Viewing figures leave no doubt that YouTube is the new TV, and Netflix is looking more and more like a broadcaster, having decided to add advertising. The streamers are essentially taking a page from the Murdoch playbook. When the media mogul created Fox in 1986, he looked to the NFL as a way to attract eyeballs. He then added NFL rights in the 1994 season to develop affiliates and bring in a bigger audience. Producing live sports at scale is an incredibly complex job. The likes of Fox, NBC, CBS, and ESPN have decades of institutional knowledge and experience. But there is unlikely to be any material offset for CBS and other legacy media companies. The new deal may create an opportunity for new platforms looking to snap up other sporting rights as the older players are squeezed. At risk? Major League Baseball and Major League Soccer. With only so much money going around, the NFL could suck out all the cash from sports rights. We have the ability to offset a portion of any kind of cost increases because we look at our sports portfolio as a whole, so we would certainly consider balancing or rebalancing our portfolio as we move forward when those opportunities become available. Fox CEO Lachlan Murdoch said on an earnings call earlier this year. But losing NFL rights would be an existential threat to Fox as much as any of the rights holders. The NFL doesn't need to fight. They don't care. If you decide to enter into a fight, you're going to lose, Skipper says. So they would be very persuasive if they say, sorry, we don't want to wait till 29. And everybody's going to have their press officer write a statement that says, oh, we were so excited to get the chance to continue our relationship with the most valuable content in the world. With negotiations expected to pick up through the summer, one eventuality is the same partners lock down similar packages. There may be nips and tucks that would allow for the creation of another package, likely for a streamer, but the partners will then need to find ways to pay up, which will mean finding savings in other parts of their businesses and passing on the extra cost to the fans. Sports and live content is unique, and I think we stand in a unique spot in that ecosystem, Goodell tells me. So I think we create value. You know, every business makes calculations and has to make determinations of the cost of things, and also how they allocate their resources, capital and otherwise. At the Super Bowl halftime show, Bad Bunny belted out his hits Titi Me Pregunto, Yo Quiero Sola, and Monaco. Some were distracted by the controversy of it all, but in reality it was a masterstroke by the NFL as it looks to bring in a larger international audience, Latin America, South America, Hispanics. The international horizon is also where there is more money to be made. The NFL is currently shopping for a mini package, what it calls a strip, which will incorporate a game in Australia in September, along with domestic games. That looks likely to go to YouTube and Netflix. I think the commissioner is somebody whose heart looks a lot like the NFL Shield, and he cares about the league, Schroeder says. He's worked really at one place his entire career. You know, he lives it, he breathes it, he sleeps it, and he's always thinking about a couple things. One is what is best with the league, and what's best for the league? And 2, how do we always move forward? The NFL looks closely at how its media partners are performing. Advertising, ratings, subscriptions. How they generate value from Thursday through Monday Night Football becomes part of the calculation. An 18th game would increase the league's value by billions. In our new labor agreement, I hope we go to 18 games and 2 preseason games. And then if we do that, it would allow us to hopefully go to 16 international games. So we would have every team every year play an international game, which would be built mainly through a streaming audience, Kraft tells me the day after Murdoch's birthday party. An old broadcast TV is in some ways the new broadcast TV. I believe that the majority of their games will stay on networks, former Fox Sports president David Hill tells me about the next iteration of the rights deal. Until streamers are in a position to say that we can give you the same bulk audience that the networks can, which I don't know if they can at the moment, or if I don't know if the NFL at this stage is going to make that fit. But what I think will happen is that the percentage of games on networks will come down slightly, and the percentage of games on streamers will go up slightly. YouTube, Amazon, and Netflix have one big advantage over the competition. They have massive global footprints outside the U.S. Netflix, whose strategy had always been about binge watching, has also come around to the live events formula. From NFL headquarters in New York, Goodell tells me that it was 10 years of conversations with Amazon and team owners before the streamer landed its Thursday night package. That package had previously been held by Fox, CBS, and NBC, who all opted not to pursue it because they had strength in their Sunday packages. I think streamers bring innovation. They bring technology, Goodell says. They bring an important platform. From YouTube, we've learned a lot. The importance of creators and influencers, how they've done that. They took over Sunday Ticket, which is a package that we thought could have a lot more innovation, and they've done an amazing job with it. Goodell, who has not visited Australia before, will make 3 trips in 6 months down under, ahead of the first ever game in Melbourne between the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers in September. When he isn't negotiating deals and at games, he finds solace in his man cave at his New York home. Everybody got a look at my man cave back in COVID, Goodell tells me, referring to having to do the NFL draft from his innermost fiefdom before adding, I hope not to do that again. When I asked the 67-year-old about succession, he acknowledges it's on his mind. That's one of the things that you spend a lot of time focusing on, he says. Brian Rolapp, who was responsible for the NFL's media businesses, was seen as a replacement until he left last year to run the PGA. He's created a situation that the shoes would be hard to fill. On the other hand, it would be tremendously attractive for an outstanding talent, Jones tells me. One thing is for certain, much like the Oscars defecting from ABC to YouTube in 2029, the Super Bowl could be shown on a streamer in the next decade if the price is right. I always thought that when we were negotiating with the NFL, the boys would turn up with ski masks and AK-47s. Hill, who negotiated a number of deals when he was running for Fox Sports, says, laughing. At Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California in early February, fans gathered for Super Bowl 60, where the Seattle Seahawks would ultimately defeat the New England Patriots. For the privilege of watching an underwhelming game and a much more whelming live performance by Bad Bunny, the cheapest tickets went for just over $4,000 a pop. The stadium's capacity is more than 68,000. The math tells the stakes. In a long glass-fronted suite with tiered leather seating sat YouTube CEO Neil Mohan, Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, Axel Springer CEO and Netflix board member Mathis Dopfner, soon-to-be Disney CEO Josh D'Amaro, and Paramount Skydance CEO David Ellison. The men were gathered to kiss Goodell's ring. It was a super relaxed atmosphere, Dopfner tells me in April, recalling what was his first Super Bowl. The moguls were just chatting, he says, from gossip to serious business talks, and then just focusing on the game and the whole event, and the entertainment part of it, which is also very important, and having fun. That's partly how, as he puts it, Roger Goodell has created the most valuable sports rights in the world. The NFL stands symbolically for success and for mass audiences, and in the way everybody wants to be part of that success, and I think that's why there is a lot of competition for the events, that everybody is trying to get a piece of it, says Doffner. That is a reflection of Roger's success over more than 4 decades. And with Doffner, Goodell has created one more fan and one more partner. The day after the big fun game, Doffner's Bild, Germany's popular tabloid newspaper, and the NFL announced a partnership. And continuing on from the June Vanity Fair Special Sports Edition, this essay titled, Keep Outside the House That Always Wins. This is an American sports story about addiction and attention one Kisi Makiba Lemon has only told to his casino friends after losing his paycheck and nearly the rest of his life. This is an American sports story that I've only told to casino friends. The year is 2000, the date September 10th. It is the beginning of my 3rd year as a graduate student in creative writing at Indiana University, Bloomington, and I'm speeding back from a rec league basketball game in a neighboring town called Martinsville when I hear that Bob Knight, the iconic head basketball coach at IU, has finally been fired for grabbing a student named Kent Harvey, who purportedly called him Knight instead of Coach Knight. By the time I get back to my apartment, literally breathless, I hear from a downstairs neighbor that thousands of students are marching to University President Mile Brand's house, some hoisting a burned effigy of Harvey. I step out of my apartment on 3rd Street and follow the roar. The roar leads me to the mob. The mob reminds me of American stories from Mississippi, my home. I thought I knew mobs after having been kicked out of college 5 years earlier for an altercation with some Confederate cape wearing frat boy on bid day, until I saw thousands of mostly young white men marching for their coach, a shameless, withering basketball genius who'd survived being videotaped choking one of their players, survived throwing chairs during games, and survived saying to a female journalist on tape, "If rape is inevitable, relax and enjoy it." On my way back home to my apartment the evening of the firing, across from my favorite record store in Bloomington, I see a pickup truck and a mustached white man with an erroneous fade. I had seen his raggedy mustache and his erroneous fade earlier that day at the gym in Martinsville. When erroneous fade was on the free throw line earlier in the evening, I spotted the worst tattoo I had ever seen in my life on his left calf. The tattoo looked like a black and pinkish Skeletor, or an elaborate twig, or that long-necked brother from The Nightmare Before Christmas. I looked closer at the calf and asked my teammates if that was supposed to be Michael Jordan. "Just do it," I remember telling him. "Be like Mike, right?" My teammates died laughing. This is an American sports story that I've only told to casino friends during halftimes of WNBA games. At this moment, my casino friends are also dying laughing. Every decibel of laughter in that Martinsville gym must have felt like Mississippi fire ants eating away Erroneous Fade's heart meat. I remember watching his teeny tiny bottom lip quiver as I pulled on my mesh shorts smugly like I'd seen the actual Jordan do 100 times on the free throw line. Erroneous Fade cradled the ball and looked at me through glassy blue eyes. I chuckled long and slow at those sad glassy eyes. "Why are you mad?" I asked him. "Keep laughing," Erroneous Fade told me. "I kill niggers. I've done it before." Everyone who was laughing with me, including his teammates, stopped laughing. This is the part of the American sports story that I want these casino friends to remember most. That week in 2000, I was 6'1", 185 pounds with 8% body fat. I had a Mississippi-bred contentious demeanor, could take a punch, could shoot mid-range jumpers in my sleep, loved the physicality of offensive rebounding. After playing my final 2 years at Oberlin College, I realized the day I started my graduate program that my identity as a basketball player was over. This didn't stop me from running the same drills I ran in college at the court outside my apartment or playing in rec league tournaments in Martinsville, a place I did not realize until it was too late that was considered a sundown town, where a young black woman named Carol Jenkins was murdered for selling encyclopedias door to door. The night the mob took over IU when Erroneous Fade's truck chased me, I jumped back across the street onto campus and ran behind the admissions building. I was not as scared as I was angry that I was getting chased in Indiana by a white boy with a suspect fade and the worst Jordan tattoo in the history of the galaxy. I want my casino friends to know that though I am, like them, currently a dishonest, degenerate American gambler, unsuccessfully reckoning with sadness, I was once good at something other than giving my money to contraptions programmed to pilfer. Once I was agile and swift and had the discipline of an athlete. Once I could fight. When I tell this American sports story, I glide or stumble over the part about having body dysmorphia, obsessive exercise disorder, and anorexia because who has the stomach for that part of real American sports stories in a casino? This is an American sports story I've only told to casino friends while sitting in floor seats at the WNBA game after losing my paycheck, my SUV, my apartment, my furniture, and all of my savings. This is the first time I tell this story to casino friends. We're watching the Connecticut Sun play the LA Sparks in 2010. That Sun team, led by Tina Charles, is beating the brakes off the Sparks. I am a full-fledged gambling addict with no folding money in my pocket, no car to drive home, no savings in my accounts, but I have courtside Suns tickets and free hotel rooms for the next decade. The last time I tell this American sports story to casino friends, it is the summer of 2025, and we are watching the Sun, led by Marina Mabre, play the Indiana Fever, led by Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark. I am no longer a degenerate gambler. I do not have any casino friends. I have prayed and written and meditated and worked and strategized and narrated my way out of giving every dime I make to the casinos by reckoning with the immovable sadness I once fed to slot machines and blackjack dealers. Of course, casinos are betting on me relapsing and giving my future away. I will not relapse. But I want to be liked, so at the end of the first quarter, I break out my Martinsville, Bob Knight, Erroneous Fade story with the thick-wristed man sitting to my left, who I hear also went to school in the Big Ten. I did not get to the nightmare before Christmas part of the story when I look down and see my new casino friend betting on the game we're watching. He starts talking about parlays and other words I do not understand. I begin to feel that supremely American feeling of unearned moral superiority. The casino was where I almost gave everything away, including my future, my profession, my family, and my health. Yet I feel a superiority to all the degenerate gamblers in the arena, in the casino, and especially morally superior to this gambler I'm watching, whose shaking thumbs are currently betting on the game while watching the game from the casino where gaming is plentiful on a Native American reservation in this haven for late-stage capitalism, which could easily be considered the biggest rigged game in the history of the hemisphere. I want to tell my new casino friend that the phones in the casinos make valuing the texture of the athletic stories harder. Without us investing our time into textured narratives of these layered athletic artists, we get a land where humans who have reached the height of a skill are simply sleek, powerful uniform machines that we put money into, hoping to get a jackpot, a big win, and something that will help us win our money back. I want to wag my finger and tell him there is so much more to an athletic artist than their name, image, and likeness, and whether we can adequately predict how that name, image, and likeness will numerically perform. That there was a moment in time where these athletic black boy artists were the most valued, imitated, and respected black boys on earth. They created culture in our communities through athletic, artistic styles, and they appeared to be the black boys with the greatest access to good love, healthy choices, and second chances. I do not tell my new casino friend any of that. I will tell him later. Right now, I tell my new casino friend that I do not bet on sports. He tells me I should, and he keeps flipping through different screens, placing bets on more WNBA games, some knife-throwing event, a pickleball tournament somewhere in Florida. We start talking about name, image, and likeness in the NCAA. He says he can't believe college kids are getting so much to play sports. I tell him I don't think they get enough, and that the NCAA and universities should compensate players retroactively who provide hundreds of billions of dollars in underpaid and unpaid labor. My new casino's friend's name in my head is Not Casino Friend. Not Casino Friend loves his phone and gambling too much to participate in listening to American sports stories. Degenerate gambling, I think to myself, used to have so much more integrity. The crowd is as electric as I've ever seen a Sun crowd, but it's obvious that a lot of people are here to see Clark make 30-foot three-pointers. I ask Not Casino Friend if he's betting on the over or under in the second half for Clark. Over, he says, always over. I want to finish telling him my Jordan tattoo story, but he doesn't care. I start telling him the kind of story that might keep his attention. I tell him that I had to stop bringing my phone everywhere a few years ago because I'd been obsessed with something called Robinhood. Not Casino Friend turns his off and finally faces me. Over the pandemic, I tell him, my best friend encouraged me to put money earned on side hustles into Bitcoin on something called Robinhood. My best friend assured me that I was in my money-making prime and that I had plenty of money in savings and retirement since I quit giving all of my money away at the casino. My best friend knew that I'd spent a decade cradled in the risk associated with gambling addiction. They knew that I'd somehow made it out. Exactly, Not Casino Friend says. That's why now is the time to find a crypto to play with. I tell Not Casino Friend that I went into Robinhood looking for Bitcoin but decided to play with something called Fubo for two horrendous reasons. First, Fubo looked and sounded like FUBU, a brand that made me feel anointed as a kid. The makers of Fubu convinced us that we were culturally rich and actively investing in our communities by wearing their really big, really colorful clothes. Whether it was true or not, I felt black people rich in Fubu as a child, so of course, Fubo could make me white people rich as an adult. Second, Fubo's supposed innovation was that for the first time, viewers could stream any sport we ever imagined and bet on that sport in the same app at the same time. Not Casino Friend looks at me with the screw face. He tells me he was doing exactly that a few minutes ago without Fubo. Exactly, I tell Not Casino Friend, who is finally glued to my story in the Mabray versus Clark matchup in front of us. I tell him that when I put my first $10,000 into Fubo in late December 2020, it was around $36 a share. 1 year later, I was into Fubo for more money than I'd ever lost in a year, and Fubo was around $18. On April 2nd, 2023, the night the LSU woman beat Clark's Iowa team, I tell him that the stock was just over $1.30. I'd lost all of my side hustle money. But I still patted myself on the back for not giving my side hustle money away to slot machines, not betting on the game of the year, not wagering my real money, and not knowing how to wager on the game of the year if I wanted to. Not Casino Friend asks again if I ever bet on sports. I sit up straight and say, never. But you lost a year's salary investing in Fubo because you used to wear Fubu clothes? I slump back in my seat. Not Casino Friend tells me that if I had played with the same amount of money I had in Fubo and Bitcoin instead, I would have made more than $1 million. He says that if I simply took that same amount of money and bet the over on the rebounds of Angel Reese during her rookie WNBA season, I would have made more than $1 million. Right, I tell him, but then I'd be addicted to betting on sports. Not Casino Friend looks me directly in the eyes for the first time since we've been talking. He looks at me like he knows something about me that I could not admit about myself in this arena, in this casino. Yeah, his familiar blue eyes say, then you'd be addicted to betting on sports. The day after Knight was fired and Erroneous Fade chased me onto IU's campus, I made sure to wear an inconspicuous Jackson State Tigers outfit and hat to class so Erroneous Fade wouldn't recognize me around Bloomington. I was reading about Richard Wright, one of the most virtuosic literary talents the nation had ever produced, in an essay by Ralph Ellison called Remembering Richard Wright from a book entitled Going to the Territory. Because while baseball, basketball, and football players cannot really tell us how to write our books, Ellison wrote, They do demonstrate where much of the significant action is taking place. Often they are themselves cultural heroes who work powerful modification in American social attitudes, and they tell us in non-literary terms much about the nature of possibility. They tell us about the cost of success and much about the non-political aspects of racial and national identity, about the changing nature of social hierarchy, and about the role which individual skill and excellence can play in creating social change. In September 2000, that quote made me quake because I was in a sports landscape dictated by the acumen of Nike founder Phil Knight, the skillful, willful spectacle of Jordan, and the exploitive labor practices of the NCAA. That was the big three at the turn of the century in sports and culture. A quarter century later, as we've become more invested in winning and playing on our phones than witnessing and sincerely loving the absolute artful skill, will, and luck necessary for professional athletes to become professional athletes, I'm wondering how perpetual betting on sports has changed our understanding of the possibility Ellison wrote about. Conversely, it should not be lost on any of us that as the Trump administration has disappeared students and faculty who resist while shaking down colleges and universities, gutting most everything associated with historic struggles around race, gender, and sexuality, it appears to be even harder for well-compensated college athletic artists to resist passivity and organize on behalf of vulnerable students, staff, and faculty at their collegiate institutions and the cities and towns cradling their institutions. This is an American sports story, and like most American stories, the narrator is unreliable and terrified of why he loves the inside of casinos, the performances of casino friends, and stories we could tell about sports if we had more guts. The stories that we tell about sports and about how athletic genius impacts us have to be more valuable and resonant than any bet one can wager on the work of athletic genius. This is hard to accept when casino friends are sad and greedy and non-casino friends are sad and poor. And many of us feel less sad when we watch athletic artists defy our imaginations, and even less sad when we win money from their culture-creating performances. I get it. I hate it. I get and hate that the nation has handed the health of the world's children to one of the worst gamblers in North America. I get and hate that we have yet to really talk with each other about why, when our gambler-in-chief appears saddest, he seems, like most addicted gamblers, to erratically risk even more. Those gambles never lead to moral wins for the nation or big wins or jackpots for the poor Black community that most of our most prodigious athletic artists come from. Imagining gambling other people's money, taking all the wins, and never, ever admitting that you lose. Imagine living in a casino that allows you to lose and call it winning. That is not just the imagined reality of our gambler-in-chief. That was my dream for a decade, which means that the delusional, greedy liar I was in the casino will forever be a part of me. When I do not reckon with the ways that casinos, betting apps, and late-stage capitalism operationalize my sadness, economic anxiety, and greed, I risk more privately and talk less about that risk publicly. And I lose. And I lie. I lie about losing in the spectacular, rotten American casino. And I kill generative possibility. And I eventually die knowing who I wish I'd become, yet absolutely unable to wrap words around the pitiful, fleshy, bloody-chinned, self-righteous, delusional gambler that the casino, the prediction market, and worst of this nation need to create and sustain for its survival. This is the kind of American sports story I want to have the courage to tell to my casino friends in 2026. I suppose I just did. And this quick little fun story, it's what's better than one famous fan preening courtside, two household names lighting up the Jumbotron, one old school, the other next gen. Chris Murphy explained who's who. Now for the Knicks, the filmmaker Spike Lee can rest assured his fellow native New Yorker, Timothy Chalamet, won't trade his courtside Knicks tickets for a subscription to the American Ballet Theater anytime soon. The LA Lakers, this supermodel, Kendall Jenner, has been snapped at Lakers games more than 700 times, but that still pales in comparison to Jack Nicholson, 1,600 plus photos courtside. The Boston Red Sox. The singer-songwriter Gracie Abrams may not actually be a Boston native, she's from LA, but her love of the Red Sox rivals that of Beantown's favorite son, Ben Affleck. The University of Texas. Both movie stars, Matthew McConaughey and Glenn Powell, are tried and true Texas boys who can't help but root for the home team, Hook 'em Horns. And at Arsenal Football Club, the self-proclaimed soccer mom, Kim Kardashian, and the F1 star Lewis Hamilton were spotted getting cozy at the Super Bowl, where they may have shared their love of football. No, the other kind. Another quick item. Kyle Smith is the NFL's first ever fashion editor, the official point person between the league and the world's clothing brands. It's a job that entails arranging fashion show invites, negotiating partnerships, and having complete tunnel vision. Smith helps athletes like the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow choose the polished outfits they wear as they depart their team bus for the locker room, a camera-crammed feat known as the tunnel walk. It takes practice. How does one find pants for a 250-pound, 6'5" linebacker whose muscles are so utterly ginormous that they defy universal sizing? It's a lot of big thighs, I will say that, Smith says, laughing. And finishing out today, here is some fun sports fact. It's the summer of soccer, and you don't speak a lick of soccerese. Not sure where to begin? Jack Holmes has your World Cup cheat sheet. Each World Cup is the biggest event in sporting history. 1.5 billion people watched Argentina battle France in the last final in 2022. On February 8th, 220 million viewers worldwide tuned in for Super Bowl 60. Earlier that day, a regular season English Premier League match between Liverpool and Manchester City drew more than 700 million viewers globally. The United States could be the first World Cup host nation to be at war with one of its purported guests when the tournament kicks off. Another soccerese, don't say a shot was bad, say it was a poor effort. And if you think somebody's great, call them world class. Nobody agrees on what it means or who it qualifies, but it sounds official. And stoppage time is the same as injury time and added time, but it's very different from extra time. And that's all the time I have right now. This is your reader, Beth, saying thanks for listening and thanks for your continued support of the Audible Local Ledger.